Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to start our presentation. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Interaction of Processes and its Importance to a Successful Audit webinar. My name is Joseph Krolikowski, and I'm the Technical Director of Perry Johnson Registrars. A couple of technical notes. We do have all of our participants today on mute, but we definitely want to take your questions. Please use the question portion of the dashboard, and we will take questions at the conclusion of our presentation. Our topics for today, we've got a little bit of background on why this is such an important item. We're going to review the roots of the process requirement, both in 9001-2008 and in 9001-2015. We're going to explore both what is and what is not a process, including having a look at the official definition for processes. And we're going to conclude with some strategies, both things that you can do with your existing interaction of processes, and also some ideas on if you're looking to start over from scratch and redefine the processes that make up your quality system. Back in 2014, Perry Johnson Registrars was given a mandate. As no doubt many of you are aware, we are one of only a handful of certification bodies that has multiple accreditations. We are accredited by ANEP, we're accredited by UCAS, we're accredited by Accredia, and we were told that we needed to start taking a harder line on our assessments of the interaction of processes that we were being given. And the reason for that is rooted in the 17021 standard. Now that's the standard that PJR is held accountable to when we get audited by the accreditation bodies. Now therein is a very important clause where it states, an audit program for the full certification cycle shall be developed to clearly identify the audit activities required to demonstrate that the client's management system fulfills the requirements for certification. So in essence, we have to show the accreditation bodies that we're not going about the audit process in a haphazard or unplanned methodology, that we have a program in place. We're going to carry this out over the full certification cycle, and most importantly, we're going to root that plan, root that program in your management system, the client's management system. And that is where the interaction of process document comes into play. Our policy is to adhere to the interaction of processes. That is what is taken as reflective of what your management system is. So we have to adhere to that interaction of processes in completing the portions of our audit package. Now, where that gets difficult is if you have an interaction of process representation that doesn't really do a good job of identifying the processes. It becomes very difficult for the auditor to substantiate the processes reflected in his or her report, and of course it's difficult for us as a certification body to substantiate the validity of the audit program that we've established for you. So accordingly, we have instructed our auditors to begin issuing nonconformances to clients that have an interaction of processes that does not do an effective job of identifying the processes. Now, in terms of where this is rooted in the 9001 standard, 9001-2008, the two primary clauses at play here are 4.1 and 4.2.2. In 4.1a, it states that an organization has to determine what its processes are and how they apply, And furthermore, in subclause B, you have to determine the sequence and interaction of those processes. 422C takes it a step further and says that you have to have a quality manual, and that quality manual has to include a description of the interaction between the processes of the quality management system. Now in 9001-2015, all of the relevant requirements are found in section 4.4. Beginning with 441, where it states, again, you need to determine the processes needed for your system. 441B states that you need to determine the sequence and interaction of your processes. And in 442, it states that you need to maintain documented information. And of course, that phrase is kind of the replacement for documents and so forth. To support the operation of its processes. We have been informed that part of the right way to interpret that clause is, again, having an interaction of processes that represents what your processes are and how they interact with each other. Now, to take a look at the official definition for process. The definition for process, like all other official definitions in the world of ISO 9001, comes from the 9000 document, the Fundamentals in Vocabulary. And process is defined as follows: a set of interrelated or interacting activities that use inputs to deliver an intended result. Now, the key aspect of this definition is in that phrase, interrelated or interacting activities. And what that is supposed to help you identify is that a process is not a single step. It is a series of activities that are interrelated or interacting and that are focusing on a shared goal. So what are some examples of things that are typically acceptable as process designations? I've pulled some examples from some audit reports, and these are some very common process designations that we've seen: sales, marketing, purchasing, production, shipping, design and development, production control. Now, these are just examples, of course. It's important that you keep in mind that the IOP has to reflect what you think your processes are. If you understand that your system is made up of 4 core processes, for example, sales, purchasing, production, and support, it's absolutely acceptable for your IOP to reflect as much, as long as the entirety of your quality system is represented. Now, in terms of what is not a process, the IOP documents that get rejected most often are the ones that present steps. Here's some examples. If you have a designation such as create work order or issue production schedule, now are these processes or are these steps within a process? Now, in this example, we have 5 steps here. It's conceivable that all 5 of these are part of a single process, but on their own, they don't represent processes on their own. Now, when we have received interaction of process documents in the past that bear these items as processes, we've been trying to alert the auditee, alert the client, and try to direct them to improve what they've submitted so that it more appropriately reflects processes. Now, we obviously recognize that for a majority of our clients, a lot of careful thought and consideration went into the development of the IOP. And we're also painfully aware that for many of our clients, it's quite disconcerting to be told that something that you've had in your system for many years is now suddenly unacceptable. That is quite jarring, to say the least. So for many of you, we feel that a couple of tweaks are really all that's needed to meet this requirement in a more effective manner. Let's have a look at an example of how this might work. We're going to begin with a raw interaction of process document, and we're going to make two improvements to that item that I'll show you here. Now, this particular example is not reflective of any particular PJR client. It was created solely for the purpose of this presentation. So here's our raw interaction of process document. Now, you'll note that there are a grand total of 12 boxes in this IOP and 2 decision diamonds. Now, are we to conclude that each of these 12 boxes is an individual process? You know, you look at some of these items. Over here we have sales and work orders issued. Over here we have order entered into mainframe system. Now, are those standalone processes? Because when we look at this IOP, that certainly seems to be how they are intended. Getting to the improvements. Our first improvement that we're going to make is to identify support processes. Now, if we could jump back to the raw IOP for just a second here, you'll note that what we've got here is essentially the core activity. We have the order entry cycle right up through the shipping cycle. But there's other conceivable activities within the system that haven't been included here. So what might that be? First of all, it's important to note that ISO 9000 and ISO 9001 don't draw any particular distinction between how to classify processes. We do see this idea of core processes and support processes fairly often, but it's not a required item. But what we're referring to are the things that support the quality system: management review, internal auditing, training, corrective action, and so forth. So let's apply this improvement to our test model. Okay, so we've added kind of a disconnected box down here, and it's called support processes. And within this box we've got all of the support activities of the quality system, and the idea, of course, by these disconnected arrows is that these processes stand in support of the rest of the system, the rest of the activity. And obviously in an ISO 9001 quality system, these are things that you're going to be doing. Now, additionally, what we're going to do as a further improvement is create a key. And the key is going to help us identify what the processes are. Now, again, we're going to be keeping the IOP the way it was originally rendered, but we are going to identify the processes made up by these various steps. So let's do that as well. Okay. So now we have a key down here, and according to the key, these 12, or rather now 13 boxes that we have represent 6 processes. The items in orange are part of a sales order entry process. The items in green are purchasing processes. The items in yellow are production. The ones in red are part of quality. Purple is for shipping, and in this case it happens to be a single box, a single step on the IOP, and then blue for support. So now we've really got something here. We've made 2 adjustments. We've kept the content of the IOP as it was before, but now we know what the processes are. And we have also got representation of support processes. This is an IOP that is ready for audit assessment. Now, obviously, there's a number of ways to fulfill this requirement. So what we also wanted to do as part of our presentation today was to share some additional examples to give you some ideas on what we've seen in the past that has also been considered acceptable. Now, several of these are from current PJR clients. In all cases, permission was granted to utilize these examples. Okay, so we'll begin here with this item. Now, this item has a singular flow, beginning with contracts and ending with shipping. And again, support processes kind of off to one side, but a single flow from top to bottom. This item here, a little bit busier. The idea here, of course, was intended to show the interaction. Now, you'll note some of the unique names being applied to these processes: quotation, work order receiving inspection, overhaul, inventory management, shipping. These are not your usual run-of-the-mill ISO 9001 section names. These are unique process names, which is, of course, the intention. This particular model here is commonly referred to as swim lane. Now, the names of the processes are over here on the left. There's actually 4 of them: sales, purchasing, production, and support. And you, again, as you get into the swim lane itself, you have the actual steps of the process called out: order received from customer, planning meeting, issuing work orders. You also have some acknowledgement of the fact that in this particular company's case, sales and purchasing are independent, so to speak. Reviewing available inventory, issuing purchase orders, and then they all kind of link up here when the work orders are issued, and that in turn flows down to the injection molding process. Then, of course, along the bottom here, the support processes and the general support that they give to the other 3 core activities. This is another item. Again, in this case, the company used highlighting to say that these 5 items here are their core activities, and everything else is to be considered support. So again, that's fine as well. And again, you'll note kind of the unique names that are given here: repair and return, service exchange, distribution, and so forth. Now, we want to be sure that you have a value-added audit. We want to be sure that you've got a firm grasp on what is a process so that your system can be evaluated in as effective a manner as possible. So we do hope that this presentation will be helpful in you understanding what your processes are. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open the question portion of the dashboard here. And we've got some questions on getting copies of the slides. We will absolutely be making the slides available in a short time. You'll also be able to re-watch the presentation in a short time as well. There's instructions for both of those items right on our website. Any other questions today? Okay, I have a question incoming from Caitlin Walking. Caitlin, please take your time. Okay, we've got some questions here. We'll begin with Caitlin Walking's question. There is commentary on the sequence and interaction. Does sequence here imply that the interaction must be linear. Not necessarily, Caitlin. The idea is that your processes, the system is yours to put together, obviously, and the manner in which your processes interact with each other is also for you to determine. So there's no expectation that the interaction be linear. You simply need to define how it has been rendered in your particular company's case. Faridun Shakiri asks, do they have to demonstrate the inputs and outputs of each process? You don't specifically have to demonstrate that on the IOP, but you should, as the owners of the system, understand for yourself what the inputs and outputs are. Okay. Any further questions today? William Busher asks, to what extent must the top-level process be documented? My company has no top-level governing documents. Well, William, I like to take these things on kind of a case-by-case basis, but in general, again, just to kind of restate the key point, the expectation in both 9001-2008 and 9001-2015 is that you know what your processes are, that you have determined the processes that make up your quality management system, and that you have a document that demonstrates what those processes are and how they interact with each other. If that is rendered in a series of documents, particularly under 9001-2015, that's fine. If you, just to pick an example out of the air, if you've got a series of turtle diagrams that you're using, and within those turtle diagrams the entirety of your system has been addressed, that's completely fine. But the expectation is that it has been defined, it has been determined, it's been documented. Caitlin Walking asks a follow-up question. As an additional question, it was mentioned in the beginning that the IOP document is evaluated for appropriateness by the auditors. Is there a public rubric or guideline for appropriateness? Caitlin, yes and no. We do provide this presentation to our auditors as well. We've also provided some auditor-specific training on assessment of interaction of processes. But again, because companies are going to differ from case to case, we do tend to take things on a case-by-case basis. Darlene Froming asks, what does IOP stand for? Interaction of processes. One more from Caitlin. Let's say there are several flowchart diagrams, like demonstrated in the beginning of the slides, one flowchart diagram per process, comprising a part of a quality management system. Would a diagram showing the top-level interaction of these be considered a proper IOP? Caitlin, sight unseen, I would say that sounds reasonable, and certainly would be something that we've seen in the past. But again, the key idea here is, what are your processes? And if calling them top-level processes puts it over in terms of helping you make sense of it all, that's completely fine. Okay, anything further? William Busher asks, would you say that internal auditing fits as an individual process, or better to think of it within general support? William, I guess my opinion, I would say that my opinion is not as important as yours in this instance. The pattern has been that internal audits are typically captured as being part of a larger network of support activity. But it's completely acceptable either way, so long as it is recognized as part of your quality system. Okay, Caitlin, I will hang in there with you for your next question. No problem. Okay, similarly to 2008, is it only the processes defined by an individual organization, the ones prescriptive for auditing? Okay, I think what you're asking me, Caitlin, is does the auditor have to abide by what the organization defines? And the answer to that is yes, 100%. Our expectation, which is why we place so much emphasis on this, um, when we get an interaction of processes document, um, we our expectation is that the audit report, the audit plan, the audit working document, all of the tools of the audit package square up with that. Again, that goes back to what we talked about in the earlier part of the presentation, that um, as a certification body, we have to plan our audit program around your management system. So that's why this is such a big deal, and why I created this presentation in the first place. So yes, our expectation is that the auditors will align what they're doing with how you have defined your processes. My friend and colleague Gail Jones asks, are you going to talk about measurement of core processes identified by the organization? What Gail is raising a question about here, a very valid point. The processes that are defined, the expectation of the standard is that you have measures of effectiveness for these processes. This, of course, aligns also with the quality objectives requirement. It's not a topic that we have as part of this presentation, but in general, what I will say is that the expectation is that your quality system needs to have measures of effectiveness for these processes. You need to understand what are my processes and how am I measuring the effectiveness of said processes. Caitlin Walking asks, are the measurements required for an audit the ones that are defined by an organization's own quality system? Yes, 100%. You are within your rights to define your measures however they most make sense to you. I will add that in 9001-2015 there's been an interesting new twist on quality objectives, and that is that they now have to be relevant to your processes and products and to customer satisfaction. So it's kind of an interesting new twist on that particular requirement. Okay, well, I do thank everyone for their time today. Hope everyone has a pleasant day. And again, this will be posted for everybody for reviewing shortly. Thank you.